Okay, good morning and welcome everyone. Council is convened for 3 work sessions this morning. September 10th, 2025. We're going to start with an update of the comprehensive plan.
Good morning, councillors. For the record, Oliver Ojako, Community Planning Director. So we come to you on a regular basis to talk about the comp plan update. And today we will be going over a few issues we would like the council to be aware of. Some of them I will characterize as no surprise to the council so that we can put some of this policy consideration in front of you. But before that, let me just go to our presentation overview. Next slide. So we will briefly talk about background, and this will be the progress that have been made, and then also the decisions that have been made to date. We will briefly talk about urban growth areas, and the purpose here is to provide the council, and I think the cities are aware of this, there are general procedures for designating urban growth areas, and they are spelled out in RCW as well as in WAC. One area that we have been what I may call doing very well with our local jurisdictions is in consultation and coordination. Since the beginning of this process, we've been having monthly meetings with our local jurisdictions, collaborating and consulting as is required in WAC. And we also invite the tribe to be part of that collaboration and consultation. Prior to Cowlitz County conducting or reaching the population threshold to do GMA planning, the city of Woodland have been coordinating with the county since 1994. So we have included the city of Woodland. Why is that? Because there are some portion of the Woodland urban growth area, the Horseshoe Lake area, that is in Woodland. So we have been coordinating with Woodland, but I would say lately they have not been attending our meetings, and I can understand why. We don't have a multi-county planning policy between Cowlitz County and Clark County, for example. Similarly, the city, while there's a very small portion of Clark County that is in Woodland urban growth area, they cannot expand their urban growth area into Clark County. They can only do that in Cowlitz. But having said that, we have included the city of Woodland as part of the cities that we are coordinating and consulting with. Then I will briefly go over the ag resource land, and I am calling this what if. I am not speculating, but we have to put those what if scenarios in front of our council. Then I will conclude with next steps. Can we go to the next slide, please? Councillors, you have seen this before. The progress of the project progress to date, you can see that we have 4 phases as we proceed with this periodic plan update. We started with the project initiation, shaping of the plan, review and refinement, and then the adoption process. We are at the review and refinement. All the check mark areas have all been completed. The review and refine section, we are in the process of issuing the DEIS. That is supposed to be published October 1st. And as I have shared with council, we are required to provide 30-day comment period for the public to review that document and the implications or the impact as provided in that study. I have extended that because the public has can ask for extension. So we are going to extend that comment period for 60 days rather than the normal 30 days to give the public sufficient time to review that. Part of that also is that I know, and I'll talk about that briefly, the AG study report will be coming out the same time, similarly, so the public may have the opportunity, if we have those two documents out there, to give them more time to review that. We are building in 60 days for the comment on the DEIS. So that's where we are. I have the AG study there, which will be coming up. I'll talk with quickly. You can see on the adoption process that we have included in here, not by statute, but just the fact that it's not likely that we will complete by December 31st. So we've moved this final adoption to schedule to June 2nd, 2026. Next slide, please. Councillors, these are the decisions that have been made to date, and this gets me to really the role of the county in terms of the what is required in the GMA. It is the county that is required to choose the population to plan for. Included in that is the employment. The legislature doesn't, or we don't have any employment forecast as we do from the Office of Financial Management. We rely on Employment Security Department to provide us employment projections. So the council have made a decision. We started out with the council adopting a public participation plan and then preliminary scope of work. You also made a decision on the population forecast to plan for. That's what is being represented here. And then what the overall job forecast total is going to be by 2045. After the council made those decisions, we work cooperatively in consultation with our cities using the vacant buildable lands model to estimate capacity and establishing a base year. Following all that discussion and multiple hearings, the council finally approved the housing and employment allocation by UGA. You also directed on the alternative to be studied in the draft environmental impact statement. And by the majority of the council, you also commenced the ag resource study. Next slide. So let me briefly just talk about the urban growth areas. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I know that the PowerPoint presentation is very wordy. I just want to highlight that under WAC 365-196-310, subsection 3, it provides the general procedure for designating urban growth areas. There are other sections very similar to this that is in RCW. But this section runs from A to G, and if I may start with A, it just says that the process shall include, as I mentioned, consultation by the county with each city located within its boundary. I talk about the not only the collaboration but the cooperative effort we have been making with our jurisdiction to accomplish the requirement of the act. I talked about, and we have come before you talking about that the fact that we are working with our local jurisdiction, all the countywide planning policies, including countywide planning policy on as a result of the climate bill, focusing on equity. We're having those conversations. The reason for that is that the adoption of the countywide planning policy has to be done uh, uh, be accepted or approved by all the local jurisdiction. And that's what, on a regional basis or issues, what binds us together with our local jurisdiction. So we are doing that. We don't have, as I mentioned, although in the Puget Sound area, they have a multi-county planning policy that doesn't apply to us here because of our location and how far we are from other counties that are required to fully plan under the GMA. Section B there talks about the fact that each city shall propose the location of urban growth area. That's true. Then it says under C that the county shall attempt to reach agreement with each city on the location of an urban growth area within which the city is located. When you get down to D on the next slide, it says where agreement is not reached, the county shall justify in writing why it is or it designated the urban growth boundary where you do. This is an area really not particular on this issue, but generally speaking, the designation of urban growth area is the decision of the county. We have not had issues since 1994 where there's been a lot of disagreement. All I know is that I believe in 2007, the city of Vancouver did object to the what I may call it significant urban growth boundary expansion. What we did was to enter into some kind of interlocal agreement with the city of Vancouver, addressing or identifying how we are going to address some of the concerns that they raised. That's the only time I'm aware that there have been some disagreement. But other than that, if you go to E, it talks more about how urban governmental services, which we know are the responsibility of cities, and in some cases where you have multi-agency, or when I say that, I mean like Clark Regional Wastewater, we have to be mindful of the fact that they are providing services, particularly in the urban growth area where in the urban growth, some portion of the Vancouver urban growth area where they are providing services. So we need to recognize that. And then I think E gets into making sure that services are provided in a manner that is efficient and could serve those areas that are brought into the UGB. Next slide.
Okay. Chair, can I ask a question? I was just curious about that last point, E, I think it was, on whether the lands are on the trajectory as required by law to be provided by the cities, the services provided by the cities. Are we on the right path under that language?
I would say that we are, because in the, with the exception of Vancouver urban growth area, majority of all the other cities, some areas in their urban growth boundary, we put urban holding, what is called urban holding, indicating that those areas will not develop until those areas are annexed, and the cities would then be responsible to provide those essential urban services. So yes, we are.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, well, we've paused. I have a question too. Related to the 2007 Vancouver objection to that significant expansion of the UGA, what were the accommodations or agreements made with the city of Vancouver?
I think part of the agreement was led to the city, if I'm remembering right, developing the annexation blueprint, identifying areas that or how they will annex. And then secondly, we worked very cooperatively with the city, and I know that Chris wants to chime in. We, at a staff level, we engaged in, I believe, what we were calling retooling our tools, looking at our development regulations to make sure that some of the how we are developing the unincorporated area matches close with expectations from the city. But I'll let our legal counsel chime in more.
The Chris Cook, Senior Deputy, Chief Civil Deputy Prosecutor, and I just wanted to point out that the agreement that the county and the city of Vancouver entered into regarding annexation expired some years ago. It was, I don't know, a 10-year duration.
Yep.
So it has been, it is no longer in force.
Okay, thank you.
Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
this is a question for Chris Cook, since she mentioned that the agreement with the city of Vancouver for possible annexation of the unincorporated urban growth area expired some time ago. What does that process look like to renegotiate an agreement for future steps to annexation?
Councillor Young, Councillor Fuentes, this is Kathleen. So the council did have a work session with the city regarding annexations, I think a month ago or within the last month, and the council provided, the council provided direction to initiate and start preliminary conversations with the city, just, to look at timelines and opportunities on where we can partner. So I don't have any further update on that, but that was a direction that council provided to staff.
Okay, well, thanks for the update on that.
Yeah, I won't dwell on that. I know that we have a chapter which is optional on the plan document called annexation element. I would say, broadly speaking, that the county supports annexation, whether it's the city of Vancouver or other smaller cities. So that annexation policy or chapter is very clear on the role of the county. But the county manager is correct about the work session that the council had with a representative from the city of Vancouver, and asked that we continue the dialogue and cooperation. I'm sure that the city of Vancouver will be looking at updating their annexation blueprint. But as I continue to F and G, F really talks about what we have brought before the council, and I think here is really focusing on how the county and the cities evaluate urban growth area proposals. And I think what is really clear here is that the cities really need to look internal to the existing urban growth boundary and consider infill and redevelopment within the existing municipal boundary before really considering expansion of the urban growth boundary. That's what F is getting to. And G, we talked about interlocal agreements and coordination on how urban growth area within the urban growth boundaries managed, making sure that adequate provision of urban services are in place, and in some cases to how we can face that. And that's what G is providing. So this, just want to bring this to your attention. I know that those that watch what we do often refer to the WAC and to RCW in terms of have we followed those general procedure for designating urban growth areas. So let's go to the next slide. Councillors, I'm going to spend some time here because as I mentioned earlier, the council did comments that we, that is the county, conduct the agricultural land study. As I mentioned, that is currently underway, and you did approve a consultant coming on board to help us do that work. My concern was that, even though they're saying 16 weeks, I am concerned that the time is really very short. However, what I wanted to share with council here is some policy consideration or issue that the council should be aware of. And I'm presenting this not to sound an alarm, but what if scenarios? What are the potential outcome of that ag study? Let's take the first slides there. If, and this is if, like I said, I don't know what the outcome, nobody knows what the outcome of the study is going to be. But if the study comes back and reaffirmed that some areas proposed to include agricultural land and affirm that those areas still are ag and should remain ag, that will create some policy decisions that the council will have to make. And also, what would those cities that included ag, what would they do? If that's the case, it is likely that if the cities decide to look inward, and some of those decisions that the city decides to make, or either to look elsewhere, if those are the decisions or the outcome, I am letting the council know that, as you well know, if that is not studied as part of the DEIS, and I know our legal counsel is here, that could lead to a new alternative, which could potentially say or rise to a level of another supplemental EIS, and that could also prolong how long we will get this work done. The other item, third bullet there that I know you're going to ask a question, but let me finish with the third bullet and I'll take your question. And that is, the council and the cities may begin to consider, are there other cities that have capacity to absorb the allocation given to some of the cities that had proposed inclusion of ag in their UGB, depending on the outcome? So that could lead to reallocation of certain growth plans to some other cities that may have the capacity to absorb them. I will take your question up.
Okay, yeah, thank you. How much of a deviation from the current alternative would require a supplemental? Any change?
That was any new proposal that was not studied in the current DEIS.
Anything?
Yeah.
Acre, anything?
It could, yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. So just correct me if I'm not remembering correctly, but I believe all of the cities except for La Center have proposed alternatives that do not include agricultural land. Is that correct?
La Center,
Ridgefield provided alternatives, as I understand.
I think it was part of a public comment. They submitted an alternative without resource land.
yes, but that came later and wasn't part of the DEIS.
Okay. So that would probably trigger a new DEIS. And then La Center, if La Center didn't propose an alternative but might want to have an alternative, that would probably trigger that as well.
Yes, and I think the other thing to understand is that for some of the jurisdictions, some of the proposals exceed their allocation.
Okay, that's another issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think both alternatives overall, countywide, exceed the allocation of housing and jobs. So there's going to need to be some scaling back as we get to the preferred. And it's just difficult to tell how much of that is part of the expansions that are resource because they're specific to certain jurisdictions. And those two in particular, Camas, I think in their alternative 3 also included some resource lands, but not in their alternative 2.
Right. And so cities are aware of all of this. And if they have exceeded their allocations, they've been informed of if there's an alternative that they propose. They've been informed of that.
Yes, and we're going to reiterate that. And yes.
Okay. And then how do we get that information to be able to know who is exceeding or who isn't?
So we have output from our vacant buildable lands model, and we can provide that information in a higher levels kind of summary, so it's easier
That'd be
to
good.
digest.
Thank you.
Chair.
Yes, go
And I
ahead.
just this same conversation here. I had conversations with somebody from Richfield. I don't recall whether it was a member of the council or staff, but they were in disagreement that they were actually over their allocation numbers. I'm wondering, when is the last time that you had communication with them on this particular issue?
I mean, we discussed this before. We'd asked the jurisdictions to provide us information, I think, before we had information go to the consultants. So we were having back and forth. Richfield, for their housing, they're double what they need in some instances. There's no question. There could be some issues with zoning and capacity, but they're well over and they know that.
Okay, I would suggest going to them very
We're
soon
going
to,
yeah, we're
yeah, to clarify that. That's all I had for that.
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
So if there were changes to an alternative and there was a supplemental, how many extra months would that add to the timeline?
Councillors, it would be difficult for me to really say. It could take 3 months. It could be less than that. Yeah. Yeah, but it would be difficult for me to say. One thing I would like to mention is that our last meeting with the cities, which was September 4th, we had this similar conversation of what if. There were no agreement, or I wouldn't say that we had extensive discussion of what would the cities do. It was just the same information that I'm presenting to you, or the same scenario that I am discussing with you is what I presented at that meeting on September 4th. I informed the cities that I will be having similar conversation with our council, not to alarm anyone, but these are conversation and policy issues that you may face depending on the outcome of the study. Again, we don't know. I'm hoping if we go to the next slide, in this particular slide, what this is saying is if the study comes back and identify that some of this ag area needs to be designated, it may not just be those that the cities included in their urban growth boundary. It may be some other property that the study identified that needs to be designated. Currently, the minimum parcel size of our ag is 20 acres minimum. We know that there are some areas that doesn't meet that, so they're legally non-conforming, but they met the criteria to be ag. So if there are new areas that identified that needs to be designated, the council will have to make a decision. What would those be? Are you going from now Rural 20 to, is it going to be Rural 5? Is it going to be Rural 10? Is it going to be Rural 10? So that decision is going to be before you. All we are trying to say is that that decision would have to be made as part of this process if that is the outcome of the study. Let me go to the final.
Sorry, I have one more question. Did you say that there are some egg parcels that aren't complying currently and that would therefore require us to make a decision on those? No.
No, I'm
Oh.
saying if the study comes back and identified currently ag area that needs to be de-designated, whereby their current designation is 20 acres minimum. If they are de-designated and they're not in any of the cities UGS, they are outside, you have to make a decision on what should the designation now be. That's all we are putting in front of you.
Okay, thank you.
The final potential outcome is if additional land met the agricultural designation criteria, which is the opposite of what I presented earlier. In this case, there are some areas that the study comes out and says they qualify to be ag, but they're not currently designated as ag. You also have to make a decision of what those areas should now be designated, because they could be now Rural 5, Rural 10, Rural 20, and now they met the criteria to be designated as agriculture. You have to make a decision on what that needs to be. And failure to do so, and the legal counsel is here. So those are the implications and scenarios that I want the council to be aware of. And my concern on this particular scenario is that it could have implication on the rural capacity, because we are allocating some growth to the rural areas. So where you make some decisions that take rural 20 now, making it ag 20, and if it's 20 acres and let's say it's rural 5, and they could get additional 3 or 4 lots, and that can no longer happen. That will have implication on our rural capacity. But it looked like our legal counsel has something to say before I move on.
I just wanted to clarify when you said if land must be designated as ag, that is not designated for resource land at the moment, so it's rural, then the council will need to make a decision on that. Well, presumably, if the study shows it should be ag, then it should become ag 20. We don't have a smaller ag zoning designation. We don't have ag 10 or ag 5 or ag 2. The county tried ag 10 in 2016 and was roundly chastised for doing so. And, you know, that attempt was ruled non-compliant and invalid. So it would go from being some form of rural to ag 20. Do you agree?
I agree, but I think, again, I don't know what the study is going to come out with, but assuming that's the case, I could see the council wrestling with that. But I can also see where, because right now we have some areas that are zoned as Ag 20. Because of the history of parcelization in Clark County, they are legal non-conforming. So if we have Ag or Rural 20 or Rural 10 that this study comes out and say they meet the resource, making them knowingly making them legal non-conforming, I think we might be able, I'm not providing any legal analysis on that, but a property owner may look at that. I have my home, making me ag, I am legal non-conforming lot. I'm not sure that that will create a huge issue for us. It's just the fact that if the property meets the resource designation, we should be able to think about what should the designation be. The issue that you're raising to me goes to parcel size, and given the fact that we don't know what the outcome is going to be and what parcels could be now identified as meeting the resource designation, assuming if all of them are rural 20 and there are no homes on them, I see no implication of making them Ag 20. But I agree with you that we don't have anything lower than the current Ag 20 minimum size. That's my answer.
Okay, I just want to point out, this is just a consequence of doing the study.
I agree.
I'm not sure that it would be easy or, well, I'm sure it wouldn't be easy. I'm not sure whether it would be lawful to say, okay, this new stuff is going to be Ag 2 so that we can avoid non-conforming lots. We have non-conforming lots in Ag all over the county, and they have homes on them.
Right. That's what I was getting at. So that, yeah, I agree with you. But councillors, these are some of the scenarios that I want to put in front of you so that there are no surprises when we get there, assuming the study comes back and any of these scenarios pans out. It will be decisions depending on where we are that you will have to face and making a decision and directing us on what to do. Let me stop there.
I just have a comment related to Ag 20 and the value, even though it's non-conforming, of having that Ag 20 overlay, because there is in the future opportunities to aggregate properties, neighboring properties, so that if one may be 10 acres, a neighbor may have 15 and doesn't want to farm all of that area. There's the opportunity for the neighboring farm to become compliant if there's a lot line reconfiguration. So that's what we did when we aggregated our agricultural land. And I also have a question on rural capacity, because I know there's a lot of what looks like one, well, there may be one owner, but the underlying, there's underlying 5-acre parcels. And is that captured in the rural capacity? Because I have always thought we have much more rural capacity than we might be aware of, because there's properties that are already divided.
So the rural capacity is based on sort of the existing zoning. So if you have a 20-acre parcel with a house on it and it's zoned R5, we assume that there's a capacity for 3 additional lots. If
The example I'm thinking of is Ag 20.
Mhm.
It's over 60 acres, but it's already divided into 5-acre parcels. So it had been farmed, but now it's being divided. And so I don't know if that sort of scenario is captured.
If they're existing vacant lots, I think the model, well, we estimate those as having the potential for one lot or one house on each of those existing parcels that are vacant.
Okay, but it had been 60 acres and farmed.
Correct.
So it's just the underlying land divisions, not the
If it-
zoning.
But if it's been created as a lot,
Right, okay,
it's treated as that
Regular.
individual lot.
thank you.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next slide. The next steps is really there's next steps. I know you're going back. I'm done with this particular one. So the next step is, as I said, the Ag resource studies due November 4th. And we will, or the consultant will review that study with council on November 12th. I think we have calendared that on your schedule. So that is where we are.
Yes. We received just this morning a letter from the city of Vancouver regarding the employment land expansion as part of the urban growth area. And, this, we haven't spent as a council, we haven't had very much time with you guys on that land, on the expansion area specifically, and why it was chosen and how it plays out in the scheme of things. And I have concerns with those areas. The city has offered multiple different paths towards potentially some changes that we could do. I would like to see if we could have a work session on that expansion area specifically so that we as a council could better understand it and look at potential options for changes that would be legal without potentially a supplemental EIS, as well as what would require a supplemental.
I think related to just that expansion, the county has an alternative that does not include that expansion. So I don't think it would require an additional DIS.
I don't think that and Jose can correct me if I'm wrong. Councillor Young, I know we have had a discussion with council. I can't remember what work session, how we treated or how the model treated the Highway 99 corridor. And then two, what our experience have been on how we have seen development that are occurring in areas designated for mixed use, although there are not that many areas outside the city limits that are designated as mixed use. What was assumed before, and I see my predecessor sitting out there, is a 50-50, 50% of whatever is designated mixed use coming in as either developing as residential or commercial. For a very long time, that is not what we were seeing on the ground. Then we shifted to 80-20. And again, what we have been seeing, and I know some developers who may be listening and watching will agree, we will see 80% of that property developing as residential or multifamily and leaving a very small sliver, and then coming back and asking for a zone change to get that property developed entirely as residential. That's what we've been seeing. So it hasn't been really, it's been very challenging to do mixed use, whether it's vertical or horizontal. The first mixed use that I reviewed and approved is Mill Plain 1. If some of you are familiar with Mill Plain 1, going there is not vertical, it's horizontal mixed use. Just opposite where the Kaiser is on Mill Plain. When I did that with Don Holsing, I was criticized for what I was requiring at the time. But because it's along Mill Plain, I allowed those development that front Mill Plain to be commercial. But it has only one entrance. So none of those, what used to be Sweet Tomato, it has no direct entrance. Then you have the fish house, but if you just one entrance, but when you drive into Mill Plain 1, there's apartment, there is Class A office, and there is also, I believe, a hotel. That was the first one I did. Since then, I haven't seen significant development in vertical mixed use in whether it's in Orchards, whether it's in Salmon Creek or any other area. I would like to see where these have occurred. So we made a change to try to get to what we may be seeing on the ground, going to 90-10. That was part of the reasoning for doing so that we can provide flexibility to the development community to really develop the mixed use. So we've had that conversation with council, And what happened also is that in the Hezudel area, the model doesn't assume any capacity out there because majority of those areas have developed. So in redevelopment, and when that happens, we are beginning to see that there are some residential and employment that are occurring along Highway 99. And with the coming of the BRT, it's likely that we may see additional development as a result of that investment. But we consider that in some of the changes that were made to the model. I think some of the issues that the city is raising, we've had numerous meetings with the city staff. There's some areas that they're saying, like in the Salmon Creek, Philida area, where you have a huge swath of residential development, that there should be some pocket of employment or reasoning some of those areas to employment. I don't disagree. But when you really look at it from a practical, what is doable, you will conclude, in my understanding of land use, when you look at how close those areas are to, let's say, Tinney Road and Highway 99 and Hezudel, putting another commercial somewhere out there that you know it will be very difficult to compete with those areas that are predominantly commercial. It wouldn't happen. Just saying it doesn't think that it will happen, but I'm more than willing to have that conversation with you. The other areas, they have raised some concern, and I don't disagree, but that would mean opening up the conversation on planning assumptions. Is that what the council would like to do? They've raised some concern about the work from home, for example. If that's, that could get us, I remember we took a 4%, which was very conservative. I don't disagree that it is, but it's up to the council. If you want to revisit the work from home, you can use that as a way to offset any deficiency, if I may use that, in the job capacity. That's another way you can get to that. But yeah, we reviewed that letter. We provided a response to the city staff. I don't think they incorporated our response, but we can provide our response to you too. So some of this will become very clear. But we are open to any conversation that the council wants to have.
Sure. And I am not interested in reopening some of those old discussions. I mean, this has continually come up over and over again. And each time I've said I don't want to go that route, but I do want to better understand the selection of the land that was chosen specifically and understand in more depth why it was chosen, what other areas were ruled out, look at some of the expansion requests, the site-specific ones, if there are. I don't even know if there are any that are really close. I just, there has been a lot of public pushback on the area that we selected, and I do have concerns. I mean, I've voiced my opinion of this process on many times, not your fault, just the way that the process is, that it's kind of a numbers game, and we're assigning numbers here and we're assigning numbers there, but if there's no realistic path to those numbers being fulfilled, what would be actually done? So I would like to send an email probably at least a month ago kind of discussing this, and I think it would be good to have the entirety of the council be able to understand the nature of the land over there, take a look at what is existing in the same zoning adjacent to that area and what has or hasn't developed since it's been zoned that way, so that we can see, what are the chances of it being developed. Just those kinds of things. I would like to better understand that, because it is a significant change that we would be making to the urban growth area, the land around it surrounding, and I just think it would be beneficial both for the council as well as the public to better understand that.
We can have that conversation.
Yeah, I'd be supportive of having a little more conversation about that.
Sure.
Okay,
Chair, I just want to
Do we
confirm,
have three councillors?
I just want to confirm that we have 3 counselors that want to have a work session on this.
I support it as well.
Okay, thank you, councillors. The second part of this work session is that we did provide the council with letting the council, of course, we have shared with council that we had 3 open houses when we had the 3 land use alternatives. So Jose will go over the summary of the comment that we received. We have provided this summary to the council. We also provided you the boards, the presentations as was presented at those open houses. I know that I can't remember. I believe some of you councillors attended some of those open houses. So this is the summary, Jose.
Okay, thank you, Oliver. So yes, as Oliver mentioned, we provided on the webpage the comments that we received, the summary. But we had 3 open houses in late May, early June. We received about 139 comments. We also had an online tool where people could see what the alternatives were, and we had a comment period for that online tool for about a month from May 26th through June 30th. In this document, sort of breaking up the comments into different themes. There's about a dozen or so discussing the different alternatives, housing, equity, some parcel specific, some of the addressing UGA expansion, ag, climate, and then sort of general feedback on some of the materials that were provided. So the summary of the open house materials were a story map, an alternatives app that people could put in their parcel number and see what was being changed, the handouts and the poster boards that were shared with the public. And this is just informational for you so to understand what they saw and have a composite of the feedback. And if you want to read the individual comments, those are available as well.
great. Thank you very much. I attended one of those that was well attended, and I appreciate the summary. Any other questions? Because I think we're about to wrap up this first work session. No other questions. So thank you very much. I know this is a big task that we still have before us with many wild cards still out there. So we're all in this together. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, councillors.